Hello everybody, welcome to the channel. If you're new here, this video is going to be one in a line of other videos that are instructional and hopefully helpful to you. If you're watching this video, you're probably interested in buying lightsabers, or you have bought lightsabers and you're looking for more information or knowledge about lightsabers in general. So this is one of those videos. This is basically going to be like a some definitions or some terms and vocabulary that are thrown around in the lightsaber community, and some people don't know what these words mean or what they entail. So the point of this video is just to explain those sort of things. So if you are new to the channel, please subscribe. I'm going to do a lot of videos like this, hopefully, that are going to help you make informed decisions about your purchases. And so without further ado, let's get started. So typically there are 5 different types of lightsabers that you can buy: empty, stunt, standard effects, string blade effects, and Neopixel. Now there are others, but these are typically the most common that you'll find on the market. So empty, as the name suggests, there are no electronics installed in the saber. It's usually a shelf queen for collectors or saber enthusiasts. People like to put it on a saber stand or on a shelf and show it off. And typically these empty sabers are the replica kinds, especially the pricier ones. If they're empty, they're usually going to be a lot cheaper than functional sabers that have light and sound. But empty sabers, that's another option. So moving on to stunt. Stunt sabers only have light coming from LEDs inside the hilt. They usually have no sound, and they're usually meant for spinning or flow arts or dueling, or for beginners, or for those just trying to save money. If you're just getting into this lightsaber hobby and collecting, right out of the gate, typically you're not going to want to spend a few $100s on a saber. So most people flock to stunt sabers because they are relatively cheap, starting anywhere from 40, 50 US dollars, anywhere from 200 US dollars, depending on the seller. But these are typically reserved for people that are interested in spinning or flow arts, dueling, or those trying to save money, and for beginners. Next are standard FX sabers. These typically have light and sound, the light coming from LEDs inside the hilt. And these typically have a basic soundboard depending on the store. Now, I say depending because some saber companies offer sabers that are FX sabers that you can have the soundboard upgraded. For example, Sabertrio, they have their STUNT, FX, and Neopixel sabers, and the STUNT sabers have no sound, as I've mentioned before. The FX sabers have a Pickle Crumble soundboard from Plector Labs. However, you have the option to swap that soundboard for a Crystal Focus 10, which I'll explain later. These sabers are usually meant for the same thing that a stunt saber is meant for: spinning, flow arts, dueling, beginners, or those trying to save money. However, there are sabers that have much better lighting setups than other stunt sabers or FX sabers. For example, there are sabers that have a single Cree LED inside the hilt that shines up from the hilt, or if you don't understand what a hilt is, then it's the handle, the part that you hold on the saber. It shines up from the hilt all the way through the blade. It's a hollow polycarbonate tube with usually some diffusion foam and maybe a mirror or a reflective surface at the end of the saber near the tip. So that's typically what is used for FX sabers. Usually it's a single Cree, a tri-Cree, or a quad Cree setup. Tri-Cree and quad Cree setups are usually much brighter, and there are comparison videos and pictures out there comparing what a single Cree LED saber looks like compared to a tri-Cree and a quad Cree LED. But typically the tri-Cree and quad Cree LED sabers are much brighter. Next up is string blade effect sabers. These have both light and sound, similar to a standard FX saber. They typically have a basic soundboard, and like I mentioned before, you can have people gut the Saber and rip out the internals and the electronics and install a better soundboard, which Pit Force 5 on YouTube, he does a great job of that with the Galaxy's Edge Sabers from Disney, and he converts those to Neopixel Sabers. But for the sake of this this definition, we'll just stick with they typically have a basic soundboard stock. However, these, in comparison to standard FX Sabers, have an LED string inside the blade. These are usually found in the Master Replicas, the Hasbro, the Force FX Black Series, Galaxy's Edge at Disney, stuff like that. Those are the most common LED string blade FX Sabers. They use multiple strings of 64 LEDs in segments. So what these intend to do is they show that scrolling effect that, if you've seen some of my videos before with Neopixel Sabers, there's a scrolling effect to where the light goes up the blade accurately to what the movies look like. However, the LED string blade FX Sabers, the ignition, the scrolling effect it's pretty clunky and laggy, and it's a lot less realistic looking than Neopixel Sabers, and it is an older technology. String blades usually have less LEDs per meter, so the scrolling effect isn't as smooth, and the blade effects are much more limited compared to Neopixel Sabers. Now, moving on to Neopixel Sabers, these can also be called Plectropixel Sabers. I believe that's the copyright, so not many Saber companies can actually use that name. But Plectropixel Sabers, Pixel Sabers, Neo Sabers, you'll find a couple other designations, but Neopixel is basically the overall broad term for this kind of saber. These have both light and sound, and usually use the latest and greatest soundboards on the market. They're also usually the most expensive sabers on the market, but have by far the most customization and effects. These use pixel LED strips, not strings, in a 144 LEDs per meter configuration, and that allows there to be very little space in between each lighting diode so that the blade looks very full and bright and allows for full RGB customization. In comparison to string blades, the LED diodes are farther apart and there's less per meter, so it is not nearly as fluid looking and full, and usually the RGB colorization and customization is not nearly as advanced as Neopixel Sabers. These Neopixel Sabers are without a doubt the pinnacle of lightsaber technology as it stands now. I'm really excited for the future to see what saber companies and sabersmiths are able to do, but as it stands right now, Neopixel Sabers are the pinnacle. So moving on to sound. A soundboard. If you don't understand what a soundboard is, it's really just, as the name suggests, it's a board that controls the sound of the saber. But depending on what kind of saber it is, that board also controls the lighting effect of the blade. I'll go into detail of some of the top soundboards on the market in another video, but for now I'll just give a brief definition of two pretty common ones that I've mentioned before on this channel. First one is Crystal Focus 10, or CFX. This is quite possibly the best consumer-friendly, most easy-to-use top-tier soundboard on the market. It's developed by Plector Labs and regularly updated by Irv Plector himself. The Crystal Focus 10 offers many blade effects, sound effects, ignition and retraction effects, etc. If you are interested in seeing some of those effects already, there are videos out there, but I also have videos on my channel. I'm trying to do quite a few videos in a small series about Crystal Focus 10 effects, so please feel free to check those out. I'll link those in the description. These can be used, this soundboard can be used in FX Sabers or in Neopixel Sabers, but are more commonly found in Neopixel Sabers. The board itself costs $85 and is much more capable than the FX Sabers offer, so they're typically reserved for Neopixel Sabers. However, like I mentioned before, Sabertrio and some other companies may allow you to upgrade the basic soundboard or the Pico Crumble soundboard or whatever soundboard they're using to a Crystal Focus 10 in your FX Saber. The next soundboard I'll talk about is the Proffie. The Proffie is quite possibly the best lightsaber soundboard on the market, period. Proffie has all the same features that Crystal Focus 10 has, and then some, as it is open source. It's basically limited to what LED lights can do and the imagination of the people creating the light scripts and the coding for the soundboard. However, it is quite difficult to understand and customize if you're a beginner or those that have no coding knowledge. Typically considered the ultimate enthusiast soundboard, the Proffie is. And it is cheaper than the CFX by about $20 to $40 depending on the vendor. The Crystal Focus 10 and the Proffie soundboards are the two most common soundboards that have optimized sound fonts being developed and sold by font makers on sites like saberfont.com, Kyberphonic's personal site, Repulse Custom Sounds, etc. These font makers typically make sound fonts for Crystal Focus 10 and Proffie because most people looking for these sound fonts either have Neopixel Sabers or they have FX Sabers upgraded with a Crystal Focus 10 or a higher tier soundboard. So the Crystal Focus 10 and Proffie are the two most common soundboards that sound fonts are being developed for. Now, if you don't know what a sound font is, the sound font is the sound of the saber when you turn it on. So the swing sounds, the hum sounds, the noises, all the noises that you hear, that's the sound font. So purchasable sound fonts usually take the form of a folder that has many dot wave files that correspond to each sound. So the swing sounds, the clash sounds, the hum sounds, the blaster sounds, the lockup sounds. They're typically labeled swing.wave, swing1.wave, swing2.wave, clash1.wave, as well as in that folder there are configuration files that are read and interpreted by the Saber soundboard. So when you're talking about a sound font, it is what you hear. When you're talking about a blade profile, it is what you see. Now, going into depth about sound fonts, smooth swing sound fonts. Now, if you don't know what this is one of those things that when you see it for the first time and when you hear it for the first time, you're really never going to want to go back to what you saw and thought before. Only a few soundboards are actually currently using this technology, like the CFX, the Proffie, and a few other soundboards I'll discuss in a later video. But smooth swing is the technology used by the accelerometers and an algorithm on the Lightsabers soundboard to repeatedly loop hum sounds and mix swing sounds in such a manner that it accurately tracks the motion of the saber. So I'll show a video now showing the difference between a smooth swing sound font and a non-smooth swing sound font. And trust me, after you see this video and hear, you're gonna notice that there's a huge difference and it's much more accurate to the movies. All right, so here's the difference between a non-smooth swing sound font and a smooth swing sound font. So I'll show the non-smooth swing sound font first. This is Nightfall. This is one that comes on Sabertrio's pre-configuration 3.1 when you first buy a Neopixel Saber. This is a non-smooth swing sound font. This is the default settings. I haven't changed anything, but as you can tell, when you swing the saber like normally, there aren't those same swings that you'll hear in the smooth swing sound font. You have to really give it some force to trigger that swing effect.
Sound effect selection. Nightfall. Audio player.
Supreme Leader, fulfill your destiny.
And now this is a smooth swing sound font. This is Supreme Leader 7 by KSIF. This is a smooth swing sound font. And this font is awesome, by the way. And I'll show it off with a different sound font because this sound font has a little bit of a different hum than most sound fonts usually do. So I'll show a different smooth swing sound font so you can really get the effect.
You still have.
Now, moving on to blades and dueling. One of the few things you'll see when buying a custom lightsaber is different grades of blades. It's the same concept as when you see a commercial for a truck or something that it says it's made of military grade steel or military grade aluminum or something like that. It's just a term to describe a certain quality of material. Typically there are two different lightsaber blade grades, medium or mid-grade and heavy grade. Mid-grade or medium grade, these are blades that have thinner walls, which typically allow for a brighter looking blade depending on the configuration of the saber's lighting approach. So typically, if you have an FX saber that has an in-hilt LED lighting setup, then it will have a better, brighter looking blade. But it also depends on if you have a Neopixel saber, which I'll mention in a second. The trade-off with mid-grade blades is that they're usually not as durable as heavy-grade blades, and in most cases they should not be used for any heavy full-on dueling. These are typically show blades used for spinning and flow arts, as they typically weigh less than a heavy-grade blade, in some cases weigh up to 2 times less than a heavy-grade blade. Now moving on to heavy-grade blades. These are blades that have thicker walls, and in some cases are 1.5 to 2 times thicker than a mid-grade blade's walls. These are typically less bright than mid-grade blades depending on the configuration of the saber's lighting approach. Just like I mentioned with the mid-grade blades, if you have an in-hilt LED saber, then there may be a noticeable difference between a mid-grade blade and a fairly thick heavy-grade blade. Once again, that just depends. It depends on what kind of blades, where you bought them from, how well they use the diffusion film, etc. In some cases, the difference in lighting and the difference in blade brightness and color disparity is negligible, but that's just for you to determine. These blades can usually withstand heavy full contact dueling and are basically meant for that purpose. In some cases, these blades are almost indestructible. It's always advised to check the manufacturer's specifications, recommendations, or advisories when contemplating buying a heavy grade blade and contemplating dueling or hitting your blade on other blades or objects. In terms of most heavy grade Neopixel blades, it's usually not recommended to go all out and do a lot of full contact dueling, as the blades actually have something inside the blade that can break. Unlike sabers with in-hilt lighting, the blade is pretty much hollow except for the diffusion film. Also, the blades are usually very expensive to replace if they're broken. Neopixel blades go anywhere from $90 to $150, $160, depending on the seller. There are more expensive options out there, like ripper blades and other custom blades. Heavy dueling could also cause damage to the small pogo pins and plector pixel connector that connect the blade to the hilt and soundboard, especially if the blade isn't seated correctly inside the hilt, or if the retention screw is too loose. Always check what your heavy grade Neopixel blades manufacturer says about its durability before going all out with dueling or hitting it on things. Now moving on to another aspect of saber collecting and saber purchasing is customs and installers. When you're looking at purchasing lightsabers, you'll run into another possible option, which is custom sabers done by sabersmiths or installers. These are typically much more expensive than a larger company installed saber, as the sabersmith and installer has to purchase all the parts separately, they have to pay for shipping, and they're usually doing all of this on their own. Saber companies usually have teams of installers working in tandem, which reduces the stress and workload of each employee. For that reason and a few others, installed custom sabers are usually more expensive overall than a pre-installed saber from a saber company. However, if money is no object to you and you're really not concerned with the price, you can certainly reach out to a sabersmith to see if they can create a completely custom one-off design, and if possible, they can work on that for you. Those looking to get in the lightsaber hobby may also choose to create their own designs through the custom saber shop and the modular hilt system, or MHS. You can pick and choose and customize different parts and put them together to create a really unique masterpiece, or you can put your own spin on a classic design if you so choose. Either way, if you have the time, the money, and the patience for it, designing your own saber is a great option compared to buying from a saber company. Now, with all that being said, this is not a completely full guide if you are new to the saber community. This is just a few things that I see pretty often and a few questions that I get a lot on my channel and that I see in saber community and saber forums and the lightsaber subreddit. I will be doing more videos just like this in the future. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment down below. Looking forward to creating more content on the channel. I actually have another lightsaber on its way to me right now. It actually should get here, at the time of filming, it should get here within the next 2 hours. I'm a little upset that it didn't get here while I was filming the video, but oh well. Also, if you do want any recommendations on where to buy lightsabers from and companies that I really trust and admire, please feel free to check out my video on the top 5 lightsaber companies. I'm going to put it up here somewhere. Also, if you are a Neopixel lightsaber owner, please feel free to check out my lightsaber videos about CFX blade effects, as these are things that I have had to learn myself after reading through the Crystal Focus In manual and talking to other people. And I just wanted to make a video like that just so I can put it all in one area so I don't have to keep pulling from things here and there, and so that other people don't have to do the same thing. So if you are a CFX Neopixel owner, please feel free to check out those videos about the different blade effects, ignition, retraction, blasters, lockups, all that sort of thing. And I will do more videos on those in the future. If you are interested in watching some of those videos, please leave a like, subscribe, hit the bell notification, and may the force be with you.